just a chemical that doesn't break down, really. So it's forever. It stays around forever. PFAs are in our bloodstream, terrible for our health. And the biggest emission, it's not just coming from the food you eat, but even bigger source, which is
Sam and Kit Warren-Russell, who really took skincare into their own hands.
Twin brothers from the UK who are taking the skincare industry by storm.
Sam is a nuclear astrophysicist, and Kit is a geophysicist and author.
A Notre Dame grad and his twin brother are looking to revolutionize skin health.
The two launched a 2-year intensive research study.
Two very smart guys who knew all about bad skin at a very early age.
That woman at the end was our mum, and really she's the face which launched 1,000 questions for us.
Welcome to another week of our blind breaking news. So basically, for anyone who doesn't know, I pick a breaking news item which is related to what we do, which you haven't seen, or you don't know which one I'm going to pick. Basically, you could have seen it in the news, and then I introduce it to you, and we talk about it, and we relate it back to everything we're trying to do, which is trying to roll back the chronic disease epidemic in the Western world, isn't it? Mm. So you ready, Sam?
I am, yes.
Do you have any, having seen what the big news this week is, do you have any inkling about what it might be?
I have a bit, because in our realm of chemicals and skincare, I have a hunch about what it could be, but you tell me.
Yeah. I mean, there's been so much in the media about it recently. But anyway, this article, firstly, as a precursor, it's on the BBC, which is, I would say, one of our favourite broadcasters worldwide.
Oh, by far favourite. So much so that we've deleted our subscription service and the annual fee to it, and we're not watching or using any of it.
Yeah.
But apart from that, love it.
I think to foreigners, they don't understand how big a deal that is, because they think it's just like a Netflix subscription service. But BBC is just the British Broadcasting Corporation, so it just means it's the national broadcasting corporation. So normally they say to be able to watch live TV, you need a BBC license. So it's a big thing to quit it. Anyway, we won't go into that. The BBC is severely going downhill at a rate of knots, probably almost vertically at this point. But anyway, moving on. So the article is about, I'll read you out the title, Sam. The title is, I have high levels of forever chemicals in my blood. What can I do about it? So you already know, because we already talked about forever chemicals in a previous podcast, or previous 2 podcasts. And basically in the article, the woman who's writing it, she goes to get her blood measured for these higher level, or for forever chemicals, and she finds that she's over 4 times above the limit, which is supposedly the limit of which is healthy. So she finds she's, I think, 9 nanograms per milliliter of forever chemicals, milliliter, sorry, not millimeter if I said that, in her blood. And actually the limit is 2 nanograms. So she's way above it, and she's flabbergasted by this.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, well, we'll come on to it, but my question would be, she's flabbergasted by it, but I would think that most people would be flabbergasted by the levels that they have in their blood. From what our research shows, and the latest breaking news that we've talked about on here too, about the absorption of chemicals through the skin, cancer-causing ones, and all these ones in skincare and cosmetics being used daily. So yeah, I would say, just off a hunch, I mean, she doesn't sound like a woman who's doing anything extraordinary, like working in a PFAS factory. And smearing it over her face for a test every single day or whatever. So it sounds like she's just a normal person, quite healthy, and so she's probably got average amount in there. So I would need to know the stats on the population, but most people won't know really, will they?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. They don't actually compare hers to the average person in the rest of the article, which is, as you say, that comparison would be really good, because as we know, I think a huge amount of people would actually be subpar in terms of their health in many areas, including this area, wouldn't they? So Sam,
yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, subpar is quite kind of you.
Yeah. We'll go into that later. But firstly, I just want to go quickly. the article talks about how forever chemicals are really bad for our health, but then also talks about ways of reducing not just contact, but also build up of forever chemicals. But firstly, Sam, I want you to say, what is a forever chemical?
Well, it's just a chemical that doesn't break down, really. So it's forever. It stays around forever. And so the problem with them is obviously other chemicals are bad to health in the short term, immediately. But if it sticks around and keeps causing problems, especially if it gets stuck in your body or stuck in areas that don't that are bad, then that's bad news.
Thanks for that summing up. So yeah, they're basically just chemicals which it's very hard to degrade, so they stick around for long periods of time, don't they, in nature or in our bodies as well. And I think she was saying that in this article you can get build-ups of them in your body, and as they accumulate and stuff like that, obviously they can cause more and more health problems. So it's not one of these things which is easily flush outable as well.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I don't know the exact process and how that's going into depth of how much can get out of the bloodstream and whatever. But if you think about them, they stay around, they're forever chemicals, then just from the amount of chemicals that people use in their skin daily, then it sounds like they're just going to be topping up their bloodstream every day with PFAs. Did we talk about PFAs, by the way?
In previous podcasts?
Yeah, but also on this one too. I can't remember if we said about PFAs, because that's might be something.
I don't think you linked PFAs to what we're talking
All right.
about.
Well, most people call forever chemicals because there's so many of them, but they say mainly, I think PFAs, which is perfluoroalkyl or something like that. My dad would be cringing right now that I don't know the correct chemical name, but PFAs is the short for most of the forever chemicals.
Yeah. So PFAs is basically what they are. Oh, a lot of them are. And I think in the article, she also said there's 10,000 of them kicking around. And obviously, a few of these have been linked to serious harm like cancers, thyroid and liver function disruption. So yeah, these things, obviously, as they accumulate as well, they get worse and they cause more of these health problems. So she was flabbergasted, really, that she was so far over the limit of what is healthy. And again, I actually think that when they say it's so-called healthy as well, even a small amount of these things is going to severely disrupt your body. So I think that limit is going to be totally wrong as well, personally.
Well, exactly, because also the studies done on the limit, it's the same thing that they're always done on. They talk about just like the exposure to this amount, but you never talk about really the cumulative exposure of chemicals. And that's what I know, going on to another podcast that we did about the Make America Healthy Again movement in America, talking about they're really focusing on cumulative exposure, not just exposure to chemicals. So that's what these studies don't really do too, about the baselines for exposure.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's one of the biggest things about that MAHA report, that Make America Healthy Again report, wasn't it? That cumulative exposure, it builds up over time, which is why things like, well, we'll go into it later, but things like cosmetics, which you're putting on your body daily, are incredibly worrying and harmful for this, aren't they? So, Sam, just one thing. So we've defined forever chemicals, all right? We've defined why they're dangerous, because they've been linked to harm, and they accumulate because they don't break down in your body. So the next thing is, in this article, what area do you reckon they focused on in terms of which?
You mean where they come from?
Yeah, and then also which was causing the most harm in the body, where they came from.
Well, I mean, I know that one. It will be the number one by far will be food source. So they'll be talking about the food source contributing. So the animals and mostly, and where it seeps into the environment that eat these chemicals, because they're everywhere now. They'll be talking about that as the main source. And then secondly, probably clothes or kitchen equipment like non-stick pans, which they're always obsessed about.
Yeah, it's weird. They actually talked about non-stick cooking equipment, I think, and then ceramic pans or something like that. But obviously the main one they talked about was foods and our diet and things going in, ingesting us. But Do you remember the podcast we did a few weeks back where we talked about these forever chemicals, that new study which showed that they were getting absorbed through the skin in huge rates? They actually said that one of the biggest misconceptions was that most people think all of these forever chemicals, we're just getting through contaminated air in our food system and they're all being ingested or absorbed through things like that. But actually they were saying that the biggest thing which they'd missed out was that loads of these are getting absorbed at huge rates through the skin as well, which is really scary. And also another classic omission of the skin and cosmetics in any of these discussions about health.
That's a general point that we not only notice but always make, isn't it? That everyone always talks about how food and the food source is always the problem with whatever it is, absorbing chemicals, destroying our health, gut microbiome, but they never talk about the skin. And if you think about it, which we always talk about, the skin is the first line of defense. It comes into contact with everything in our environment, and you only eat 3 times a day, and there are other defenses for ingesting. So, the skin, like that article was saying, is the biggest area for these to happen. So you said they're just being absorbed every day. So yeah.
But playing devil's advocate, then I would ask, well, okay, the skin might be important, and previous studies have showed that it can absorb through the skin, but is there anything in our Western environment which is causing things to penetrate rapidly, horrible things to penetrate rapidly through the skin?
Well, yeah, I mean the main thing, might be less severe from the skin if we were just sort of exposed to our environment and there were chemicals floating around in the air and things like that, and on our clothes and things. But the point is that the biggest exposure in our eyes will come from the chemicals that we put on using skincare. So what we use in the shower and the bathroom every single day onto our skin, all over our bodies, that we just slap on every single day, daily. It's our choice. And they used to contain huge amounts of chemicals, including the forever chemicals.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest revelation, that these forever chemicals are actually in a huge amount of cosmetics, aren't they? So these things which we're showering with, we're washing with, or we're putting on our skin every single day, almost every single waking moment of the day, if some people wear things like makeup, they're all just seeping through our skin. They're not just being washed off our skin. These chemicals are actively penetrating in our skin and getting into the bloodstream, aren't they?
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many things there that we can't talk about all of them right now, but chemicals themselves, as we've said in the breaking news, are being absorbed into our bloodstream from the skin. It showed that even 3 days, I think it was, of these women stopping the use of their skincare, it cut the amount of chemicals in their urine by something crazy like 50%, 60%, just by 3 days stopping the use of these. So when we talk about all the biggest amount coming from food we eat, that's not going to be right now. But I think I would ask you about this article. Yeah, I want to know so they've said food, and then they've said what you wear. We'll come back to, you made a really good point in this. Probably a distant fifth, they talk about cleaning products, so maybe just don't use cleaning products with PFAs. But they'd never even mentioned skincare products. But they're the ones that you're putting on yourself daily in the shower every single day, and you're cleaning with it, I don't know, once every 5 days, once every week. So why is there this omission about the skin again?
Yeah, it's utterly baffling to me, but it keeps recurring. So again, it's like a record on repeat. They never seem to get it in their heads that the skin and cosmetics are one of the major factors in this huge, massive epidemic of health problems going on, and that it's massively involved in all of it. It's almost as if they're willingly being oblivious and being stupid enough to miss it out every time. So yeah, the funny thing about the article, which was so predictable again, was that, as you say, I don't think they mentioned cosmetics or the skin once, did they?
No, they said cleaning products, as always. So they always talk about cleaning products, but you only use them once, and you're wearing pink pink rubber gloves while you're washing it when you're prancing around in your apron. And so, I mean, yeah, it goes into the environment, but they're not going applied directly to the skin. So again, there's this massive emission. And you said an amazing point earlier. Sorry, go on.
That's exactly what I was just going to interject and say. But basically, the other thing is things like cleaning products. They also mention clothes a lot, saying forever chemicals are in clothes. But cleaning products and clothes, unless you're sucking in or breathing in, and then suddenly your t-shirt disappears down your nose, and all the chemicals go into your bloodstream that way. How are these chemicals getting from your clothes into your body? And it's exactly one thing. It's through our first line of defense. It's through the skin. Well, so then they start this blaringly obvious thing, which again in cleaning products as well. I mean, the cleaning products, unless obviously part of it is inhaling and then them going in your airways, but the vast majority of it will be contact through your skin, won't it?
Yeah, and I think you made a good point earlier, and I thought about it too, is that always sort of second or third on these lists about exposure to chemicals are PFAs, especially are in your clothes, like man-made synthetic clothes. But then the question is, okay, so if they're in your clothes, then how are they getting inside you if you said that they're ingested?
Exactly, yeah. So again, just another very slow process to help these people join the dots together very slowly.
But that to me seems like the massive, because we can end there soon, that the massive point is that it's absorbed through your skin. So the skin, again, if it's coming through clothes, which aren't even, you're not even slapping the chemicals on, they're in the fabric of the clothes, they got to come through the skin somehow. So if you're putting on skincare every single day, which we always say, that's going to be the biggest exposure to these chemicals.
Exactly. And that's a really good place to end there, Sam. So let's do our 20-minute roundup of the whole breaking news section. I just want to say very quickly that this news was so big that PFAs and forever chemicals also were featured in a massive article in The Independent, which is a UK newspaper, one of the biggest UK newspapers today. And also I saw it in loads of other media outlets. So this is massive news. Anyway, take it away. Where's your 20-minute summing up?
Okay, well, PFAs are in our bloodstream, terrible for our health. And the biggest emission, it's not just coming from the food you eat, but even bigger source, which is skincare.
That's brilliant. I love that. Let's end it there then.